In Dragon Ball Z, our heroes are constantly training to surpass their power levels, continuing a goal towards being ever more OP than they were before. Yet in the world of comics, where every hero is presented possibly as being the most powerful, we consistently see heroes being forced to hold back. Why is this? Well, I mean, we all want to feel like our hero is the strongest, the most epic, the undefeatable one. But in order to be that, their power levels have to read as off the charts. And if you are dealing with a moral compass, like most of our heroes are, that can create quite the conundrum sometimes. In fact, there are many reasons why some heroes are forced to hold back. And in this list, we are going to look at some of those heroes that do that and the motives behind their decisions. This list is part 4, that's right, part 4 of a little list series we like to call Superheroes Who Hold Back Their Superpowers. Let's get counting. Number 10. The Beast. The blue bouncing beast is more known for his super intellect than his super strength, although really super strength is his real mutant ability. His brute strength, durability, and super dexterity are the powers that he was granted by his mutation. So why do we know him more for his intellect? Beast prefers to stay out of fighting when it can be avoided, and is often recognized as an academic and pacifist. Part of the reason he holds back when he is fighting probably comes back to those beliefs, as well as his fear of his more animal nature. The times that he is held back when it comes to fighting probably has to do with a few events following his transformation into his beast-like form. As you'll recall, he didn't always look as he does. He used to look like an almost completely normal human, and then he was also a grey beast for a while. Soon after he was transformed, he was drugged and hunted by Kraven, causing him to resort to a feral-like state. He almost killed Kraven near the end of the story, and later in the comics was manipulated into believing that he'd killed Iron Man. Both events were like a living nightmare for the mostly peaceful Hank. Number 9. DEKU. When DEKU from My Hero Academia receives his all-for-one quirk from All Might, he is forced to hold back his powers, as using them at full strength would destroy him. The power of All for One basically allows him to store up energy and then release it in one superhuman and often explosive blast. He must train and use the power carefully or risk damaging his entire body. Therefore, he carefully channels the power and controls the percentage of output to avoid injury to himself. And even with reducing it as much as he does and controlling it, his use of the power still causes his hand and fingers, which he channels the power through, to become disfigured. Number 8. CYCLOPS. The proof is in the pudding with CYCLOPS, who is forced to hold back his powers simply because he cannot really fully control them. His laser eyes, sorry friends, I'm just kidding, his optic blasts need to be kept in check, or he would just be blowing up stuff left, right, and center. Scott actually has 2 separate ruby quartz visors, one that helps him control his optic blasts and one that he wears when sleeping that completely contains these blasts. And if you don't believe that his powers need to be held back, just look at the evidence. Anytime he loses his visor in the comics or any other media involving the loss of his visor, usually results in him having to close his eyes to protect people. Unless Emma Frost is around to help him have control over this ability, of course. Number 7. SUNSPOT. Being able to convert solar energy into strength may not seem like it is something that is insanely powerful, but there was a time in the comics that SUNSPOT almost killed himself while doing this. Yeah, after losing control of his powers as the result of an injury, Roberto was forced to use a regulator headband to help him gain control of his abilities again. He was often depicted wearing the headband in the comics to help him limit the risk of losing control. And when he chose to ditch his regulator band in an attempt to access the full potential of his powers, he was actually warned that this would likely kill him. Fortunately, he managed to survive, but the risk was still very much there. At his full strength, SUNSPOT was even referred to as the strongest Avenger. Granted, this was Roberto himself talking, who is known for being kind of full of himself, so. Number 6. Wonder Woman. An insanely powerful superhero, Wonder Woman's abilities appear almost limitless. She has super breath, is insanely strong, is somewhat telepathic, can fly, and even sometimes can breathe underwater. Does anyone remember when the comics told us she had gills? Weird. Granted, these abilities are surprisingly not her own really, as they are gifts from the gods. But still, one cannot deny that Wonder Woman is pretty much unstoppable. So what is she holding back? Apparently, the full strength of her powers as a demi-goddess. Yep, the Wonder Woman we see in the comics isn't even all that she could be. It has constantly been established that her bracelets of submission are used to keep her powers in check and prevent her from becoming too OP. Number 5. Jean Grey. Another strong woman who has been classified as one of the strongest telepaths in the world, an Omega level mutant who also has telekinetic abilities. You might be thinking that I'm gonna go down one of my favorite paths here with Jean and talk about Phoenix and Dark Phoenix and self-control in regards to those entities that Jean becomes. You'd be wrong. In fact, Jean had to have the full potential locked away from her from a very young age. When she first came to Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, Professor Xavier actually put up psychic shields in her mind, recognizing she was not yet prepared to handle the full potential of her power, as it could put her and others at risk. Number 4. Quicksilver. What happens when you go even faster than the fastest man on Earth? That is something Quicksilver should never venture to answer, and after the events of No Surrender, I'm sure he learned just that. Quicksilver is an arrogant hero who sometimes plays villain and who normally indulges very much in his powers. The rate at which he can travel allows him to dash across oceans, walk on water, dodge bullets, and even time travel. However, during the Avengers No Surrender event, he traveled too fast, even for himself, and seemed to find out why restraining one's powers can be a good thing. In his own series following the comic book event called Quicksilver No Surrender, he seems to get stuck somewhere between time and space, in some kind of weird time-space limbo. The series itself is beautiful and you should read it. It also involves a lot of self-reflection on Quicksilver's part, but besides that, it also serves to show us why Quicksilver holding back from traveling beyond the fastest he can is a good idea. Number 3. Rogue. You asked for more Rogue from me, and you got her. Coming in at our number 3 spot, Rogue is a hero who has always wanted to hold back. In fact, she is often portrayed as not even wanting to have her powers at all, even sometimes attempting to seek out a cure. The traumatizing experience of her first kiss with Cody Robbins, resulting in him ending up in a coma, has always kind of caused her to wish that she was different and, didn't have powers. She does her best to control, limit, and hold back her powers, being careful not to make physical contact with loved ones, and even when fighting, to limit the physical contact she does make with enemies. Number 2. Adam Warlock. Cosmic superhero Adam Warlock has been presented as one of the few people in the Marvel Universe strong enough to wield the Infinity Gauntlet. While he was persuaded to dismantle it after being convinced that it was too much power for any one person to control, the fact remains that his time on Earth and in space has allowed him to go on adventures which have ended up granting him an off-the-charts level of powers in the comics. Still, he does not often use all his power. Why? After using all his power to combine 2 timelines to close a fault created by one of the Inhumans' T-bomb explosions, he accidentally brings back a reality where he became Magus. As a result, there is a darkness that dwells within Warlock, and whenever he uses too much of his power, he risks releasing it. So in an attempt to keep Magus at bay, he is often forced to hold back at the risk of turning evil. Number 1. Dr. Manhattan. A hero who is referred to as a god in DC, Dr. Manhattan's powers grant him omnipotence. Because he carries so much power and also knowledge of all things past, present, and possible futures, he often does not take action. In fact, in the events of the Doomsday Clock, he even refers to himself as a man of inaction. He quarantined himself to Mars and typically does not use his powers to their full capabilities. If you don't believe me, just look at the New 52, which exists because of Dr. Manhattan's interference in the Flashpoint event. I mean, if Dr. Manhattan did not hold back his superpowers as often as he does, we'd probably be seeing a lot more DC reboots than we do. Thanks for watching, fellow nerds. I hope you enjoyed reflecting with me on some of these heroes and why they hold their superpowers back every now and again. After all, as a fellow superhero who also often holds back his powers might remind us, with great power comes great responsibility. If there was anyone we have still missed, even after this part 4, spark a debate and be sure to let us know in the comments below. Maybe you'll see them in part 5, who knows. And as always, remember to share, sub, and ring that bell. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and my name is Amanda McKnight, reminding you, as always, to stay nerdy, YouTube.